On January 5th, 2000, Doug Miller, an FBI agent assigned to Alec Station, the CIA's bin Laden unit, reads CIA cables reporting that 9/11 hijacker Khalid al-Mihdhar has a U.S. visa and drafts a cable to the FBI to inform it of this. The CIA obtained the information through a phone tap on al-Mihdhar's phone in Yemen and by monitoring him as he passed through Dubai on his way to an Al Qaeda summit meeting in Malaysia. Miller writes that al-Mihdhar has a U.S. visa and that the visa application states his destination is New York and he intends to stay for 3 months. The draft cable mentions the tap on al-Mihdhar's phone, his planned travel to Malaysia, and the links between his phone and the 1998 East Africa embassy bombings. It also says that the CIA has obtained photographs of al-Mihdhar, and these will be sent separately. Miller asks the FBI for feedback resulting from an FBI investigation. Another CIA officer named Michelle Ann Casey accesses Miller's draft about an hour after he writes it. The cable is then blocked on the orders of the station's deputy chief, Tom Wilshire. As a few hours after Miller drafts the cable, Casey attaches a message to it saying, "Please hold off on cable for now, per Tom Wilshire." Miller is also told that this is not a matter for the FBI. Author James Banford will later comment, quote, "A potential terrorist and member of Al Qaeda was heading for the United States, the FBI's jurisdiction, its turf, and Doug Miller was putting the FBI on notice so it could take action. There was no reason to kill the message," end quote. Miller will say later on he has no rational answer as to why the cable was blocked, but will speculate that Alec Station officers were annoyed he had encroached on their territory. Casey drafts the cable falsely saying that the information about al-Mihdhar's visa had been shared with the FBI, and that there will be a discussion the next day about whether the cable should be sent. The Justice Department's Office of Inspector General will later call the failure to pass the information to the FBI a significant failure, but will be unable to determine why the information was not passed on. The 9/11 Commission will know of the incident, but will relegate it to an endnote to its final report, omitting Wilshire's role entirely. The CIA Inspector General will falsely claim that the cable is not sent, apparently because it was in the wrong format or needed editing. On January 6, 2000, Mark Rossini, an FBI agent on loan to Alec Station, protests in vain against a decision to deliberately withhold information about one of the future 9/11 hijackers, Khalid al-Mihdhar, from the FBI. Doug Miller had tried to inform the FBI that al-Mihdhar had a U.S. visa the day before, but had been blocked by a 29-year-old female CIA officer named Michelle Ann Casey and the unit's deputy chief, Tom Wilshire. According to author James Banford, Rossini was, quote, "perplexed and outraged that the CIA would forbid the Bureau's notification on a matter so important," end quote. Rossini will later say, quote, "So the next day I went to her and said, 'What's with Doug's cable? You got to tell the Bureau about this.' She put her hand on her hip and said, 'Look, the next attack is going to happen in Southeast Asia. It's not the Bureau's jurisdiction. When we want the FBI to know about it, we'll let them know. But the next bin Laden's attack is going to happen in Southeast Asia," end quote. Rossini protests, saying they're here, and it is FBI business, but to no avail. Even though he is an FBI agent, he cannot pass on notification to the Bureau without permission from his superiors at Alec Station. Casey will later be promoted after 9/11. In the run-up to the 9/11 attacks, Wilshire will write an email expressing his fear of an al-Qaeda attack in Southeast Asia, specifically Malaysia, and will give his reason that he does not communicate information about al-Mihdhar and his partner, Nawaf al-Hazmi, to the FBI in May of 2001. It will be alleged after 9/11 that the notification may be withheld to stop the FBI from interfering with an illegal CIA-linked operation to monitor the hijackers inside the United States. FBI Director Louis Freeh and other top FBI officials are briefed about the ongoing Al Qaeda summit meeting in Malaysia as part of their regular daily update. They are told the CIA is in the lead and that the CIA promises to let the FBI know if an FBI angle to the case develops, but they are not told that the CIA has just found out that one of the participants, Khalid al-Mihdhar, has a U.S. visa. It is unclear who the other top FBI officials that are briefed are. However, Dale Watson, the Assistant Director of the Counterterrorism Division, and Thomas Pickard, the FBI's Deputy Director at the time and its Acting Director in the summer of 2001, will also learn of the summit by July of 2001, although it is unclear exactly when they are informed. According to Vanity Fair, Richard Blee, head of the CIA's Bin Laden unit, provided surveillance updates for the CIA's top officers, the FBI, and the White House while the summit is in progress. One FBI official familiar with the case will later complain that the CIA purposely hid al-Mihdhar from the FBI, purposely refused to tell the Bureau. The thing was, they didn't want John O'Neill and the FBI running over their case, and that's why September 11th happened. They had blood on their hands. Jack Clunan, an FBI agent in the I-49 squad in New York that focuses on al-Qaeda, will later say, if that information got disseminated, would it have had an impact on the events of 9/11? I'm telling you that it would have. Two of the operatives attending al-Qaeda's Malaysia summit make short trips to neighboring countries, returning to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, within 24 hours. The two operatives are Nawaf al-Hazmi and Khalid bin Attash, known as Khalad. And the two countries they visit are Thailand and Singapore, but it is not definitively known which operatives goes to which country. However, an associate of bin Attash's, Fahad al-Kuso, arrives in Thailand around this day. In addition, al-Hazmi will later be said to have visited Singapore. Presumably, therefore, it is bin Attash that travels to Thailand, whereas al-Hazmi goes to Singapore. The 9/11 Commission will later say of these two trips, after the fact, efforts were made to track them. U.S. officials in Kuala Lumpur wondered if one of these Arabs was the still mysterious Nawaf. Both returned to Kuala Lumpur within the next 24 hours, though the authorities did not know it at this time. Meanwhile, Mark Rossini will continue to come under fire from his associates at the Bin Laden issue station. On July 27, 2001, the FBI sends a request to the CIA asking the agency to check for information on 8 Islamic radicals mentioned in the Phoenix memo. However, the CIA apparently does not find any additional information about them. However, in a 2006 book, journalist Lawrence Wright will report that the memo was sent to the CIA's Bin Laden unit. One of the sources Wright cites for this passage is Mark Rossini. Mark Rossini would again complain to CIA's Bin Laden issue state unit managers, Tom Wilshire and Michelle Ann Casey, that the information regarding Khalid al-Mihdhar should be shared. He is threatened with arrest if he does share the information to FBI headquarters. Rossini was definitely put in a spot. The two FBI agents who were involved in a pre-9/11 failure, Doug Miller and Mark Rossini, are reportedly eager to provide testimony to the 9/11 Commission about that failure, which was precipitated by the CIA blocking both Rossini and Miller's to warn the FBI about Khalid al-Mihdhar entering the United States. However, the commission does not issue them with a subpoena or otherwise interview them about the matter. Miller and Rossini were on loan to Alec Station before 9/11, which and helped block a cable to the FBI that said the 9/11 hijacker Khalid al-Mihdhar had a U.S. visa. The commission will cite the transcript of an interview by Miller by the Justice Department's Inspector General in its final report. However, in the interview, Miller falsely claims that he remembers nothing of the incident. The commission's final report will also cite an interview it apparently conducted with Miller, although this is an endnote to a paragraph on terrorist financing. Miller, however, was pressured by CIA officers who were in the same room while he was being interviewed by the department's Inspector General. Sources close to the Inspector General's probe will say there was pressure on people not to disclose what really happened. Rossini, in particular, is said to have felt threatened that the CIA would have him prosecuted for violating the Intelligence Identities Protection Act if he said what really happened inside Alec Station. They are questioned at the same time and together with a CIA officer who will be described as sympathetic, although it is unclear why CIA officials are also allowed in the room during the questioning, although it is unclear why this is even allowed. When they are shown contemporary documents, according to the Congressional Quarterly, quote, the FBI agent suddenly couldn't remember details about who said what or who reported what to whom about the presence of two Al-Qaeda agents in the U.S. prior to 9/11 attacks, end quote. The Inspector General investigators are suspicious why CIA officials are in the room regarding Miller and Rossini. Nevertheless, neither Rossini nor Miller are severely criticized by the Inspector General's final report. It simply notes, quote, when we interviewed all the individuals involving about the cable, they asserted that they recalled nothing about it. Miller told the Inspector General that he did not recall being aware of the information about al-Mihdhar and did not recall drafting the cable and did not recall whether he drafted the cable on his own initiative or at the direction of his superior, and did not recall any discussions about the reasons for delaying completion and dissemination of the cable. Rossini said he did not recall reviewing any of the cable traffic or any information regarding al-Hazmi and al-Mihdhar. Eric, a senior FBI agent on loan to Alec Station, told the Inspector General he did not recall the cable, end quote. At some point, Miller and Rossini tell an FBI investigation what really happened, including Wilshire's order to withhold the information. However, very little is known about this probe. Rossini will be interviewed for a 2006 book by Lawrence Wright and will recall some of the circumstances of blocking of the cable, including that a CIA officer told Miller, this is not a matter for the FBI. Both Miller and Rossini will later talk to author James Bamford about this incident for a 2008 book. Both Doug Miller and Mark Rossini were blackballed by the CIA as well as the FBI into being pressured into not saying anything that would compromise the CIA involving the protection of Khalid al-Mihdhar and Nawaf al-Hazmi. Later, director of the CIA, George Tenet, would give testimony to the Joint House inquiry regarding hijackers inside the United States. Carl Levin would ask him questions about why those cables were never shared with the FBI. George Tenet would tell Carl Levin that, yes, the information was never shared. Here is an audio of that briefing between Carl Levin and George Tenet The date is October 17th, 2002.
Bill does not notify the FBI about a very critical fact. A known Al-Qaeda operative, we're at war with Al-Qaeda, a known Al-Qaeda operative got into the United States. My question is, do you know specifically why the FBI was not notified of that critical fact at that time?
The cable that came in from the field at the time, sir, was labeled information only, and I know that nobody read that cable.
But my question is, do you know why the FBI was not notified of the fact that an Al-Qaeda operative now was known in March of the year 2000 to have entered the United States? Why was the CIA, why did the CIA not specifically notify the CIA? That's my question. The FBI.
Sir, if we weren't aware of it, when it came in the headquarters, we couldn't have notified them. Nobody read that cable in March, in the March timeframe.
George Tenet here basically tells a lie. According to Lawrence Wright, in the book, The Looming Tower, 53 agents within the counterterrorism unit and Alec station had indeed read that cable.
So that the cable that said that Hazmi had entered the United States came to your headquarters, nobody read it.
Yes, sir, it was an information-only cable from the field, and nobody read that information-only cable.
Should it have been read?
Yes, of course, in hindsight.
And should it have been read at the time?
Of course it should have been read.
All right, my question is, do you know who should have read it?
I don't know that, sir.
The person who read the cable was the CIA case officer in charge of the Yemen hub ticket, Michelle Ann Casey.
But I can find
Was
that out.
somebody responsible to have read it?
Well, a group of people, somebody should have read it. Yes, sir. We need to also look at where it came into, but I can find that out.
You don't know who that person was?
I do not.
Should they have been watch listed at the time, both of them? Now we're talking March of the year 2000.
Yes, sir. We've acknowledged that fact.
Okay. Do we know why in that specific time? Now we know that Hazmi has entered the United States. This is another trigger point.
Yes, sir.
They should have been watch listed. Who was responsible for watch listing at that time?
I don't know the answer to that question, but I will
All right.
provide an answer.
Next, on October 12th, 2000, Bin Laden operatives attacked the USS Cole. The FBI, which investigated that attack, learned that a Bin Laden follower, Khalid, was the principal planner of the Cole bombing, and that two other participants in the Cole conspiracy had delivered money to Khalid at the Malaysia meeting. Now, the FBI told the CIA about those facts. That information came from the FBI to the CIA. CIA went back, reviewed the facts that they had about the Malaysia meeting again. And as a result of that review, in January of 2001, the CIA determined that Khalid had actually been at the Malaysia meeting and that Midhar and Hazmi, then they knew, you knew, had been involved with the planner of the Cole bombing. Actually been with the planner of the Cole bombing at the Malaysia meeting. CIA again failed to put either Hazmi or Midhar on the watch list or to notify the FBI that Hazmi was in the United States. And my question is, do you know who was responsible for that failure?
Sir, can I?
The failure comes from the CIA's Alec station and the counterterrorism unit, in which both Kofor Black, head of the CTC, and Richard Blee, head of Alec station, deliberately withheld information from the Justice Department and the State Department in regards to Al-Qaeda operatives inside the United States. Meanwhile, Saudi and Israeli intelligence agents on the West and East Coast were monitoring Al-Qaeda subjects who would go on to become 9/11 suspects. How is it that both foreign intelligence and the CIA, as well as the NSA, who are monitoring signals intelligence regarding two lines, Bin Laden's satellite phone and an Al-Qaeda house in Sana'a, Yemen, why was this information withheld from from the FBI. The question was asked to George Tenet.
Person at this meeting as to whether he was specifically asked about Midhar and Hazmi. He has no recollection of the subject ever being directed to him or ever coming up. So there's a factual issue here, and I've only talked to two of the people involved.
Let me read you the staff report. The CIA analyst who attended the New York meeting acknowledged to the Joint Inquiry staff that he had seen the information regarding al-Midhar's U.S. visa and al-Hazmi's travel to the United States, but he stated that he would not share information outside of the CIA unless he had authority to do so. That's what he told our staff. Do you disagree with that?
Sir, I've talked to him as well.
Do you disagree that he said that to our staff?
Well, no, I don't disagree. He said it to your staff. I'm telling you what
Did he tell
told
you something differently?
Yes, sir. He
Okay.
gave me a different
So he
perspective.
told you and he told our staff something differently.
Well,
Okay.
but
The CIA would send an emissary to FBI headquarters in New York. The CIA officer would later be found out as Clark Shannon, meeting with Steve Bongard, an FBI agent in New York. Clark Shannon would show a photograph to Steve Bongard regarding Khalid al-Midhar and Walid bin Attash Khalad. Bongard is not made aware of the names. However, Shannon asks him whether he knew the people in the photographs. Leaving him in a state of confusion, Bongard asks, "Who are these people?" But Clark Shannon doesn't tell them. Although Clark Shannon would later tell the Joint House Inquiry that he himself withheld the information and later on would say that he told the FBI it was Khalid al-Midhar. However, one glaring fact was omitted. He never told the FBI that Khalid al-Midhar was inside the United States or that he had a U.S. visa.
I think it's important, sir.
Yeah, but our time is limited, so let me just keep going. That's the answer. He told you something differently from what he told our staff. Mr. Mueller, Director Mueller, at that June 11th meeting, did the FBI know that Midhar and Hazmi were at the January 2000 meeting of al-Qaeda operatives in Malaysia?
I don't believe they did.
So we still don't know in June of 2001 what the CIA has known for 15 months.
Mark Rossini and Doug Miller should be considered as heroes. Instead, they will forever live with the notion that they were forced, pressured by the Central Intelligence Agency, threatened with arrest, threatened with litigation by those at the Alec station if they shared that information. What they didn't know was that these operatives will go on and conduct the worst terrorist attack on the United States since Pearl Harbor. Blame the Central Intelligence Agency and blame them only for not sharing that information, which could have prevented the attacks of September 11, 2001, as well as intelligence from Saudi Arabia and Israel, who are monitoring the hijackers inside the United States. They were all complicit in withholding information from the FBI and from the State Department and lied about it. The question is, why?